I'm the only creature around here who ain't afraid to be your man. A lot of folks walk this way, but not a man who try to stay. Pedestrians alone and afraid. Ooh, and I don't know where this road is going. Ooh, and the beat of my heart is slowing. Ooh, but I'll try and do the best I can. Cause I ain't afraid to be your man. Knocked alone, knocked away, some strange form of decay is kindly bleeding and corroding my everyday. So please help me if you can. Use us up to reach your hand. I can swear this all was planned. In the end, it's really you that I demand. Ooh, and I don't know where this road is going. Ooh, and the speed of my heart is slowing. Ooh, but I'll try and do the best I can. Cause I ain't afraid to be your man. Reap the harvest I have sown. All along I should have known. Trouble like the rising sun, and I wonder which one is holding me up. It's not as serious as a whole. Don't let yourself lose control. It's all a joke of the soul until someone falls down the rabbit hole. Ooh, and I don't know where this road is going. Ooh, and the beat of my heart is slowing. Ooh, but I'll try and do the best I can. Cause I ain't afraid to be your man. We got one more song for you. Thank you. You know, our hands aren't full off, so we got one more song for you. We're only short on time. I can't feel a thing. Guys, you guys want to play the Beatles? You guys want to hear the Beatles? Is that okay? We can do that. I think we can manage. Alright, never mind. We're going to play Twist and Shout by the Beatles. It's not a big deal. We're shaking up, baby. Shaking up, baby. Twist and shout. Twist and shout. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby. Come on, baby. Come on and work it on it. Working on it. Working on it. Working on it. You know you look so good. Look so good. Come on, you got me good now. Got me good. Just like I knew you would. Like I knew you would. closer now. Some of these souls that survive. We're taking, baby, now. Take it up, baby. We're taking, baby, now. Take it up, baby. Thank you. We are Overlook. You can find us damn near anywhere. So, thank you. This is awesome. This is so many people. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Give your guys a round of applause. Give yourself a round of applause. Come on. This is awesome.
So now we have some amazing speakers speak about some very important issues. So, yeah, enjoy that.
Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and we have several stands that we have taken over the years, and I've been a member now for 10 years. And so much of what we want, so much of what we're asking for is just, again, common sense. For instance, having mandatory background checks. When you go to a store and buy a gun, you have to wait 3 days. So they can do a background check to make sure that you don't have anything in your past that could cause some real concern in the future. But you can go to a gun show at our Coliseum and elsewhere, buy a gun and take it home the same day. There ought to be mandatory background checks on every gun that is sold in this country. This is where the NRA and I differ, but I do not believe that there is any place for military assault weapons in this country. And along with that, high-volume magazines. You know, I don't have a problem with anybody owning the gun. We do have rights in this country. And we don't want to violate those rights. If you want to have a weapon for target practice, if you want to have a weapon to go out and hunt, that's fine. I think you're entitled to that. But as I said, I don't see anywhere in this country where there is a need for military assault rifles. Military assault rifles are built to kill people. And I know of I speak because I spent several years in the United States Army, and that's what we used to kill people. There is no place for that in a civilized country like we profess to have. And the final thing that we mayors are asking for is federal laws against trafficking of firearms. You can go anywhere in this country, particularly in the state of Indiana, where it's very easy to buy a gun. You can buy a lot of guns, take them over to Illinois and sell them. People say, well, Chicago has all of these crimes with weapons, and yet they have some of the strictest laws in the country. Do you know why they do? Because they come over to Indiana, they buy the guns and take them back to Chicago. We have to begin to have strict federal laws against the trafficking of weapons in our entire country. So my friends, that's all we mayors are asking for as a beginning. Common sense legislation to begin the process of better gun control in this country, because being one of the most civilized countries in this world, we're so behind every other westernized country that it's not only depressing, but it sickens me. We're better than that. We're better than that, my friends. So thank you for coming out today. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to plead to you to continue to lobby our legislators. It cannot be about getting reelected. It cannot be about appeasing the NRA because they threaten your political position. You've got to stand up for our citizens. You've got to stand up for all of you. Thank you all so much. God bless you all.
Okay, so on February 14th, 2018, 17 students and faculty were shot at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. So I'm gonna read the names of the victims and their ages to honor them, and after I do that, we'll take a moment of silence. Alyssa Alcadeff, 14. Scott Beagle, 35. Martin Duque, 14. Nicholas Tourette, 17. Aaron Fees, 37. James Gutenberg, 14. Chris Hickson, 49. Luke Hoyer, 15. Carol Laufren, 14. Gina Montalto, 14. Joaquin Oliver, 17. Elaine Petty, 14. Meadow Pollock, 18. Helena Ramsey, 17. Alex Shatcher, 14. Carmen Shentrup, 16. And Peter Wayne, 15. Now this is a tragedy that has and should have touched all of us greatly. There was Columbine, there was Sandy Hook, there was a Las Vegas shooting, and then there was MSC and many more. But enough is enough. These were innocent people trying to get their education and work their jobs. No student should feel feared going to school, and no student should have to use a textbook as a shield from a gunshot. And no student at all should be blamed from the killing of someone with a troubled past, as news reporters like to call Nicholas Cruz. Mass shootings are defined as a shooting in which a gunman kills at least 4 people, does not have specific targets, and attacks in public places. There have been 48 mass shootings / attempted mass shootings since 2018 has begun, and it is the 83rd day of the year. So please take that into consideration that more than half the year has consisted of mass shootings or an attempt of them. But after Parkland, the students have had enough. A revolution has occurred among students in the U.S. to make a difference and end mass shootings. But our legislators seem to be stubborn about it. And I knew money was valuable, but never did I think it was more valuable than my life or anyone else's life, thanks to the NRA. Look, we don't want to ban guns. And I know this is a really debatable subject, but for now we need to start at these small steps that we're doing. But no, we need to put control on who can buy what kinds of guns. A civilian should not be able to obtain an AR-15 more accessibly than they can get a driver's license. A person with mental illness should never be allowed to have this weapon of war. But the NRA doesn't make it any better when they refer to an AR-15 as America's rifle. But the fact that our legislators can't pass simple bills requiring stricter background checks, denying a purchase from those mentally ill, and ending the sales of bump stocks is insane. These are all common sense things us kids know are right. And for those of you who feel unsafe if the end of semi-automatic rifle sales ends, don't be at all, because there's no reason to be. No human needs to own a weapon of war in order to feel safe in their own home. There are alternatives. Our lives are more important than how much money you're receiving from the NRA. And I'm going to throw an ad out there to Todd Young and Marlon Shetchman. Sorry, that was wrong. Marlon Stutzman, who have been legislators in Indiana and have received money from the NRA. And yeah, there's only 2 people, but the list goes on and on after that. And for everyone that says that bullying is a problem in schools, then do something about it. Put more awareness into bullying and mental illness. Please just do something. But don't worry, because us kids are fixing that. And just because you have more power than us doesn't mean we won't fight harder. Because one day we will take your places. So today, on March 24th, millions of people are coming together in the cities all around the world to fight for gun control. And there are marches occurring in every continent of the world today, which is extraordinary. We are the future of our country, and no more children will die going to school, or the mall, or a concert, or anywhere where they're supposed to find joy. So please help me come together to end this and make a change. Thank you so much. So next up, I'm gonna introduce the next speaker. We have Nana Augieman, an exemplary sophomore at Homestead High School. She's involved in Biomed Club, the Network, Minority Students Association, and Students Against Destructive Decision. Her work as a student at Homestead and her contributions to our community gives her insight into what students are going through today and how we can make a real difference.
Thank you for that extensive introduction. I will not lie, when I was first offered the opportunity to speak today, I was extremely hesitant. I was nearly reluctant almost. I feared the social persecution I would face from my peers at Homestead. But then I thought of the 7,182 children who have lost their lives due to guns since Sandy Hook. I thought of 17-year-old Alana Allison, 14-year-old Nicholas Scroggins II, 36-year-old Terrence Miles, 16-year-old Quinlan Partington, 22-year-old Marcus Rogan, 19-year-old Tyon Woods, 39-year-old Edward A. Campbell, and Jacob A. Lurko, who was shot in the head working his shift at a Meijer gas station on Thanksgiving. All of these people were Fort Wayne residents. All of these people's lives have been cut short, and their voices cannot be heard, and their dreams cannot be pursued because of mindless gun violence. And then I realized I could not hide in the background when people are losing their lives, when families are mourning. There are now empty seats in classrooms, vacant bedrooms and homes, shoes that will never be worn again, laughs that will never be heard again. As a community, we've overlooked the terror guns have caused in Fort Wayne itself. Out of the 41 reported homicides that occurred in Allen County within 2017, it was 28 of those homicides where the cause of death was due to a gun. Out of the 46 reported homicides that occurred in Allen County within 2016, it was 41 where the cause of death was due to a gunshot. And we are meant to be convinced that this is only a minor issue. Lives are being cut short, all while gun violence is continually normalized more and more every day in the United States. On average, 318 people are shot by the end of the day in our country. Out of those 318, 96 will die, and out of the 96 dead, 7 will be under the age of 19. Residents of inner city communities have become numb to the sound of gunshots. Present-day music and media have glamorized gun possession. In schools, we now practice barricading doors and escaping through windows. The United States has had more mass shootings than any other country in the entire world, but claim to be the most advanced. Between 1966 and 2012, there were 292 public mass shootings, and 91 of those occurred in the United States. Between 1982 and 2011, a public mass shooting occurred approximately once every 200 days. But between 2011 and 2014, there has been at least one mass shooting occurring every 64 days within the United States. The Stoneman Douglas school shooting occurred on February 14, 2018. But as of February 21st, 2018, there have been 34 mass shootings, only 52 days into the year. The United States gun ownership per capita is the highest in the world. In a group of 100 people, over 88 of them would own a gun. The United States consists of only 5% of the world's population, but attributes to 31% of the globe's mass shootings. But this is justified through the Second Amendment. This is justified under the title of a free country, or the right to own a firearm. But the reality of it is that we have desensitized ourselves to gun violence. We have desensitized ourselves to the loss of innocent human life. We claim to be a nation under God, but is this what He has asked of us? 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 15 through 16 write, "For it is God's will that by doing good, you should silence the ignorant talk of foolish people. Live as free people, but do not use your freedom as a cover-up for evil." Gun violence is severing our country, and we must now use our moments of silence as moments of realization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shauna. That was beautiful. Okay, so let's give a warm welcome to activist, candidate for state senator, and teacher at Kikiyanga here in Fort Wayne, Kathy Zuka.
Can you hear
Okay, I brought my own stand, and I'm so glad that you two ladies persisted. This is amazing. Thank you. Every day when I walk into work, I feel fortunate. I have an armed police officer in my building for protection. When I enter my office, I look around and review my game plan in case we have an active shooter in the building. How will I protect my clients? I purposefully keep cabinets and carts near my office door so I can quickly block my door with them in case of gunfire. You see, I am a United States middle school teacher. The armed officer in our building is our school resource officer. My work building is a school. My office is my classroom, and my clients are your children. I am a middle school teacher / first responder. I want to clarify to everyone my words here today are mine. I'm not here representing my school district. I'm here representing me. We have a crisis in this country. Our schools are no longer the safe haven they were when I was a student. How do we solve this crisis? How do we protect the most vulnerable in our society, our children? We can do better. I am so disheartened when the people we elect to represent us, when these people who are supposed to have brilliant and creative minds with problem-solving skills, when these people who spend hours in meetings coming up with solutions report back to an awaiting public with their solution to gun violence, and that's arming teachers. Are you kidding me? That's all you got? Arming teachers? We can do better. Jorge Fernandez, who is running for state representative, told me about a study that was done. Do you know that studies show police officers in New York and LA with all of their intense training hit their target at around 27% of the time? Arming teachers. The National Education Association, the nation's teachers union, took a survey recently. They polled 77% female teachers and 23% male teachers, numbers that replicate our profession. 77% of us are women. 63% of those teachers polled own a gun. Yet an overwhelming majority, 82%, said they would not carry a gun to school. 99% favor universal background checks, and 99% favor taking measures that prevent the mentally ill from access to guns. How else can we keep our children safe? My name is Kathy Zuha, and I'm running for State Senate District 15. Thank you. The Indiana State Senate works with the Indiana State Representatives to write and pass legislation for our state. With our supermajority, Indiana has become an unsafe state for children. We don't fund our Child Protective Services Agency with enough money to fully protect our children. We see those results every time a child is murdered by a parent or an adult. We've had too many of those in the last couple of weeks in this area. We don't fund our schools with enough money to hire the number of school counselors that is recommended by their organization, the American Counseling Association. ACA recommends one counselor to every 250 students. We are nowhere near those numbers in Indiana. The Indiana Chamber of Commerce Foundation commissioned a study that was released back in 2014 that revealed far too many of our school counselors' time is spent on non-counseling duties. In fact, Indiana's school counselors report that almost 40% of their time is consumed by responsibilities other than counseling, such as testing and clerical work due to the insufficient funding of our schools. What does that mean? We already don't meet the ACA 1 counselor to 250 student ratio. And on top of that, our counselors' time is taken away from counseling our students. We can do better. Columbine shooters Eric Harris was 18, Dylan Klebold was 17, and his parents, who owned no firearms, never even knew he legally purchased a gun and had it in their home. Sandy Hook shooter Adam Lanza was 20. Stoneman Douglas shooter Nicholas Cruz is 19. The Maryland shooter last week, Austin Rollins, was 17. As a teacher, I know a person's brain doesn't fully develop until they're in their mid-20s. These ages don't surprise me. Perhaps if we hired more school counselors, our schools would be safer. It's a thought. We can do better. So if you really want change, I'm going to give you all some homework. I'm allowed to do that because I'm a teacher. Research your candidates. Support the ones who best represent your concerns, and I mean really support them at the local, state, and national levels. Call your party headquarters and volunteer. Like your candidates' Facebook pages and follow them. Show up at events where they are speaking. Hold your current elected officials responsible. Make sure they listen to you and to education experts, teachers, because teachers in this state are largely ignored by our supermajority legislators. Vote. Encourage 20 people to vote the candidates you support. Register to vote. If you're turning 18 before the November election, register now. You can vote in the November election. We can do this. In the primary, thank you. Because together we can do better. Thank you.
To mention the League of Women Voters is here, so if you're going to be 18 by the next election, then you should definitely go register to vote. So, I don't know where they are, they're somewhere around here. Yeah, they're over there, they're right there. So next is Jordan Lawson and her friend Emily Farler. Both attend Woodland High School and are core leaders in the Students for Change at their school. And we want to thank them for taking part in today's march and coming to Fort Wayne to share their views.
Alright, hello, I'm Jordan, this is Emily, and I'm going to be speaking first, and Emily's going to speak more on our organization after I finish, so thank you guys for listening. Alright, so Nelson Mandela once said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And today we're all here to address the newfound dangers in seeking an education and to discuss the solution. As a student, I feel strongly about many topics, including gun control. And I'm here today as a junior in high school, pleading with any and all legislators listening. I'm asking that you help us. We're children, and we deserve to feel safe in our schools. We shouldn't be fearing for our lives, because almost anyone can access a semi-automatic weapon, just in order for us to get the education we deserve. Each year, 2,737 American children under the age of 19 die due to gun violence. That number is slowly climbing to 3,000. 3,000 lives lost per year. When does enough become enough? How high does that number need to get before our government decides that a child's right to live outweighs the right for someone to own a military-grade weapon?
Sweeping these issues under the rug no longer is an option. No longer will we stand idly by, and no longer will we wait for our leaders to protect us, because let's be honest, they're really not doing anything. Turning a blind eye to the massacres of students in their country makes these politicians, regardless of party, just as evil as the shooters themselves. They say they must uphold the Second Amendment and that they must keep the Constitution intact. The Second Amendment of the people reads, "The right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." There are, however, many discrepancies when it comes to this. The amendment itself was written in 1971. Yes, 1791. Thank you. That's 227 years ago. The arms American citizens could bear then are nothing compared to the arms we have access to today. A musket contains 1-round magazines and a shooting range of 50 meters, and a skilled shooter could fire 3 shots in 1 minute. Compare that to the weapon most typically used in a mass shooting, the AR-15. The AR-15 has a 30-round magazine capacity and can fire 45 rounds per minute. Not to mention it has a shooting range of 550 meters. Do you see the difference? The threat that's posed today by these high-powered weapons is infinitely more daunting than it was in 1791. The authors of the Second Amendment could not, in their wildest dreams, have imagined the capacity weapons would evolve to. If they were knowledgeable of the dangers we now face, do you think that the Second Amendment would have been the same? Because I don't. Yes, we should have the freedom to protect ourselves and our homes and our families. However, does this justify handing out high-power, semi-automatic rifles to anyone that desires one? No. Politicians are refusing to acknowledge these facts, and at first I was wondering why these supposedly intelligent individuals could be so oblivious to facts, to the death and to the destruction of our youth. My answer wasn't hard to find. The National Rifle Association, or the NRA, has given 307 out of 535 Congress members direct and indirect campaign donations, adding up to over $20 million, not including the $30 million they gave President Trump's campaign. Those are just some of the statistics that I don't think they thought we would find. And that is why the politicians who have every opportunity to take action are standing silent. The lives of children just don't line their pockets the same way the NRA does. So now I have to ask, how many more tragedies need to occur? How many more kids have to die before someone says enough? And I think I speak for my entire generation when I say that we're tired. We're too young to be fighting for our lives, and we shouldn't be fighting with our leaders. And we should definitely not have to die to get their attention. Despite all of this, we're not giving up. The ignorance of the government displays, thank you, only fuels our fire, and trust me when I tell you that we're on fire. Our passion isn't going unheard, and I promise you that we're not going anywhere. They say that the angriest people bring about the most change, and we're here and we're enraged. We just want to live and be worth more to our government than the NRA's money. If our current legislators don't do something about our gun control issue, then my generation will, because we've had enough. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. So I would like to have a round of applause for Sophia and Magnolia and all of you who are standing here today in solidarity to say that enough is enough. And I want everybody to take a moment and look around at how many people are here today. The varying generations and ages and genders and backgrounds all gathered here in solidarity because we know that something has to change. And recently we have seen that our lawmakers put their own money and political agendas above the lives and voices of their students and their children. They tell us that now is not the time to talk about gun control, that kids should not be dictating politics, but if our government cannot work across party lines and work together to make a change, then we will. Is it right that 15 and 16-year-old teenagers have to stand here begging for adults to listen to them? Is it right that students have to fear for their safety when they are trying to learn in a classroom at school? Students are taking action because we are tired of being silent. We want our voices to be heard because our voices deserve to be heard. Every single one of you standing here today has a voice, and you're using it right now by fighting for what is right. So to anyone out there who believes your voice isn't good enough or important enough, I promise you that it is. I promise you that your voice matters. And Jordan and I have formed the Students for Change organization to be a voice for all students in Northeast Indiana. We want to unify high school students to show that we can be the change this world needs. And if you want to get involved or share any ideas or if you have any questions, do not be afraid to talk to us. I promise that we're nice people. Because we are here for you. We're here to listen to you and to work for you and with you and to prove that your voice is the most precious thing that you have. Because we need your help and we need all of your voices to stand together. So I'm asking all of the students here to share the issues that are most important to you. No matter how old you are or how young you are or if you're scared to speak up, you need to stand up for yourself. And never stop fighting for the issues that mean the most, because we are here to listen and to help your voice be heard. Because we are all unstoppable when we stand together. And, okay, I'm almost out of time, but one more thing. I don't know if you know of a candidate here in Fort Wayne. Her name is Courtney Tritch. And I don't know how many were at her event this morning and heard me speak. Yes. She's not here right now, so I hope she doesn't mind me speaking for her, about her on her behalf. But we need to vote. One way to use your voice is to go vote and to vote the people out of office that aren't speaking for the people, the American citizens. So if you don't know who Courtney is, then look her up, because I promise you that she is the voice of the people in District 3, in all of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and the entire country. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jordan and Emily. Okay, so our next speaker is Roger Parker, another activist in our community who wants to share his views on inner city gun violence.
So first and foremost, I want everybody to get a look at this t-shirt, this hashtag, the new hashtag. It starts with me. It starts with me. Changing these laws, it starts with us by voting. It starts with us by coming together the way we have. And we have to elect people into office who share our views. I want to thank Magnolia and Sophia for letting me speak today. Before I get started, I would like to add to the name of homicide victims that was mentioned earlier. Spencer Michael Smith, who passed away, who was murdered brutally here in Fort Wayne at the East Central Towers apartment complex, which is just a few blocks from here. David Miller's grandson. This guy is really out here fighting, trying to make some changes about the city. I also want to mention Mr. Hilario Segura, who was the first homicide in 2015. His grandson, his 3-year-old grandson, is here somewhere. And if you just do the math, his grandson never got a chance to know him. And so, you know, these are the things that we have to fight against. On April 3rd of 2013, while laying across my bed, I got a phone call from my niece, screaming, yelling, telling me that someone had shot my nephew. After hanging up the phone, driving as fast as I could to the scene, I found out that he had been transported to the hospital. By the time I got to the hospital, my nephew was dead. That was the first of two. Then again, on June 27th, of 2016, I got another phone call while walking into the Tin Cap Stadium that a second of my nephews, the brother of the first nephew, had been gunned down and murdered. So this gun violence thing, you know, it strikes a chord for me. And so I realized that I had to come and speak against this atrocity. The biggest thing for me is that I have to agree with Mayor Tom Henry. I have no understanding of what purpose an average citizen would need to own a firearm that's built to murder, that's strictly made to kill.
Yeah.
Wayne ain't cooperating with you guys. So as of February the 21st of 2018, there have been about 34 mass shootings in the U.S. 18 of those mass shootings occurred in schools throughout our country. Since 2017, the U.S. has saw a total of 346 mass shootings. This is absolutely unacceptable and most definitely indicates a need for immediate change. It appears as if our government is not hearing our cries, so we as citizens of this country need to seek out the government officials who do hear us. We need to register to vote. We need to exercise our right to vote, those people in office, so that they can carry our voices and hear our cries into the rooms that make the decisions, where the decisions are made. We need to bring out our shouts of change into action, and we need to no longer sit still and idly watch this happen to our children. There's no reason that a parent should be burying his child or her child, especially when they're in school trying to learn, trying to become better people. So first and foremost, I want to salute everyone here today. Thank you guys for coming out. It shows that Fort Wayne has a heart and a platform for solidarity, for togetherness, and the mood and the reason to make change throughout our country. Thank you guys. I also want to send a round of applause out to all the other hundreds of thousands of people throughout the country of the United States who are sharing our same views. Right now, there's marches going on around this entire country. So let's give them a round of applause as well. I've heard continually people say that these young people can't make a difference, can't do anything. Alice Walker once wrote that anything you love can be saved. We can save our country, we can save our young people strictly because we love them. We need to spread more love throughout this country. I love you all. Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to mention that Moms Demands Action is here. They're set up over there and they're always looking for volunteers, so you should definitely go sign up with them. And I wanted everyone to give a big round of applause to Overlook for coming and performing, because it was definitely really hard to set up in this kind of weather, and it was quite a struggle, but they did it. And stick around they'll be playing while we're marching and afterwards, so please stick around. So the next speaker is Emma Case from Canterbury High School. She's a co-head of the Diversity Committee and a member of Key Club, so thank you for joining us, Emma.
First of all, I'd just like to thank Magnolia and Sophia for putting on this amazing event. Like, this is incredible that all of you are here, and it was just an incredible, they worked incredibly hard, and that's just amazing. So, when Sophia first asked me to speak, I thought about what I was going to say a lot. I thought that no matter what I came up with, it would be a reiteration of something you've already heard. But I figured that even if it's already been said, perhaps it should be said again because our lawmakers continue to refuse to take action. So I'm going to tell you how I feel. I'm scared. I'm scared for my friends, my classmates, my teachers, my sister, and my parents who are both educators. I'm scared for myself. There are so many things that I should be worried about. College applications and AP exams and graduating and leaving my pets in my home. I should not be worried about being attacked in a place in which I have a right to feel safe. I wish I could say this was an irrational fear, but history has proven I have every reason to feel scared. There have been 18 school shootings just in 2018. Since 2012, there have been 239 school shootings. 239. 438 people have been shot and 138 have been killed. It's easy to allow these numbers to become statistics, but these are not statistics. They are people, often young students with hopes and dreams and plans, with their whole lives ahead of them. It's families whose lives are turned completely upside down by avoidable tragedy. And yet, instead of removing guns from our schools, our lawmakers want to put more in them. I have every reason to be scared. All students do, and that is unacceptable. However, despite this fear, I am also filled with an undeniable feeling of hope. The same young people that are being targeted are saying enough is enough. In fact, we're shouting it at the top of our lungs. We refuse to continue to allow lawmakers to do nothing while we remain at risk. We, as young people, have decided that if the adults that have sworn to protect us refuse to take action, we will take the necessary action. This generation that stands up fearlessly for themselves and their peers will be future leaders, the future lawmakers. Despite all the fear I feel, I know a change is coming. I'm proud to be a part of the generation that's committed to creating real, tangible change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ella. So, our next speaker is G. Mary Moore. She is a candidate for House of Representatives in District 18. So, let's show her our support.
Yes, I'm running for State House, and I have the funny hat on because I come from a rural district where we wear orange so we will not get shot. So we've been doing this for years. But I will say, out in the rural district, we need rural people and urban people to work together to change these laws. Okay? I know intimately, I have cousins, friends, neighbors who see no problem with their assault rifles. Okay? I also have friends and neighbors and family that hunt. Now, growing up on a farm, we would often have deer mingled in with our cattle. And they will spread brucellosis, they have wasting disease. We don't have the balance in nature we used to have. So hunting helps keep those numbers in check and down so that does not spread and we don't have a very sick population of deer. We don't have too many trees. That being said, we never would use an assault weapon to hunt. There is no need to have these weapons. None. And I will say that Stoneman Douglas is the sea change we needed. In that school, they had already in place a debate team that had researched gun violence and mass assassinations in schools, movie theaters, and concerts. They had all the information. They were ready to share it. And then the worst thing that we can imagine happened in their school. So when the press came and put a camera in their face, they were ready. And they said what we need to do. Some people have said, Dee, on my personal Facebook page and on my District 18 page and on my Dee Moore for Rosen, Dee, what are you talking about? You can't take our guns away. And they've been so afraid for years I'm out to take their guns away. No, our neighbors can tell you that I'm not a vegetarian anymore. We eat meat and we do eat venison too. But I'm not taking away a hunting rifle that is not designed to kill massive numbers of people in such a quick amount of time that you can't comprehend it. So go to March for Our Lives. If you need any arguments with these people, marchforourlives.com, click on petition or take action. And this is a condensation of what they've demanded. This is something we out in the hinterlands can live with too, so we don't have to always wear orange. Okay? So they say, number one, the first thing, yes to the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, but they say with responsibility. That is the difference. And the first thing to do is ban the sale of assault weapons. If you are caught up in a tree stand with an assault rifle and 100 rounds of ammunition, you are in so much trouble because that is not how you hunt, and the DNR and the conservation officer will come after you. They check on these things. So that is a lie if they say this is what they used to hunt. No, 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 no. The second thing is the high capacity magazines. That means ammunition. Okay, if in the Stoneman Douglas people will tell you, if they just had to reload their guns, they wouldn't have shot all those children. They could have escaped some of them. There is no reason to shoot that many rounds that quickly unless you just are the worst aim in the world if you're hunting. I mean, and you want to eat the meat, and there would be nothing left. The only reason we have assault rifles is to kill a lot of people in a short amount of time, and we have to end those high-capacity magazines yesterday. The third thing is the background check. They will tell you in this petition that 97% of Americans favor background checks. When Connecticut put them in for handguns, their homicide rate went down by 40%. So we need to do this, nationwide, but at the very least, we're going to have a special session at the State House. And, I know who's in there, but I know who's here too. And I hear your voices, and we can let them know that we're going to do this in Indiana, even if the rest of the country doesn't. And background checks are the way to go. We have to have them. Currently, Stoneman Douglas will tell you 20%, 22% of the guns purchased in this country have no background checks. They get them at gun shows. They get them online. And if we just have a background check for every gun that is sold, we can eliminate a lot of this mass killing overnight. So let's get together and do this. Yes, I also studied to be a teacher. I spent a lot of times in school. These shootings started a long time ago when my kids were in their 30s were in school. And I can tell you, honestly, I used to have nightmares, real nightmares repeatedly, about someone coming and shooting up the kids in our school. And there was my child laying there, and would I say my child? Or someone else's? Would my child say to save the one that's going to die? Or them? And that was a nightmare. My kids are older, I don't have that nightmare anymore. But that nightmare is real from Stoneman Douglas, and they will not wake up from it. And I don't want anyone else having that. And it's time for this nightmare to end.
Okay, so before I introduce our next speaker, I'm just gonna be extra and take a video of everyone.
That's off the case.
Because this turnout is unbelievable. Okay, so our next speaker is Blaine McCrae, a sophomore at Southside High School, and he's a varsity baseball player and a student with a different perspective on why changes need to be made. So, come on, Blaine.
It's a little nippy. So I prepared a speech, it's a little minuscule compared to what everybody else did, and I feel kind of bad, so I'll go off record a little bit. My parents are both teachers. They both teach English at Canterbury, and I can tell you right now, my dad has shot guns before to hunt, but neither one of them would take guns into school. I think they'd both probably quit before they'd handle a gun in school. I also talked to, I think, all 7 of my teachers at Southside, and none of them, including my math teacher, who's a military veteran, were going to take guns into school. They'd all probably quit before they do that. with good reason, because that's unreasonable. The politicians in this country have turned gun control into a partisan issue. I don't believe our children are a partisan issue. This is not an issue of right and left, it's an issue of right and wrong. We have a tendency in this country for denialism. The American ideal tells us that the tragedies we hear about on the news could never happen wherever we are, but they do nonetheless, no matter how much we deny them. The people in Parkland and Sandy Hook and the hundreds of other schools that have been victimized never anticipated what happened to them. Neither will the next school, nor the next school. And yet we speak about gun violence like we've accepted it. We prepare for these shootings beforehand, funneling guns and money from private organizations into our schools to train our teachers in security to stop these terrorists. I understand the necessity of preparation, but the goal of legislation should be prevention, not preparation. So we find ourselves as a country faced with a choice. We can continue to deny these things, or we can recognize them and fight them. Because it is not a coincidence that America has the highest number of guns per capita and simultaneously the highest rate of gun violence in the world. Yet we sit sedentary while we tell ourselves that nothing will ever happen where we live. These events should serve as a wake-up call. It will happen because it has. But the fact that we're all here today and thousands of people across the country are doing exactly what we are means there is hope. The power of democracy is that in the end, the control falls to the people. The people in a democracy have autonomy, not the politicians. The people have the power to assemble like we're doing today. We have the power to call, email, write, and otherwise contact our elected officials. And those officials are elected solely for the purpose of obeying their constituents, not their own peers. That is their function, and our job in 2018 is to remind them of that. And if we don't properly remind them, we will vote them out of office. This rally, and many others like it, are a call to action. A call for recognition over denial, courage over complacence, and action over acceptance. Now is time to defeat the systematic evil of gun lobbyists and the pure evil of mass shooters and other gun violence. Choose the lives of our children over the capitalistic, self-centric gain of gun lobbyists. Assemble like we're doing right now, contact your leaders, and make a difference because the time has come for change. Thank you.
His experience at West Point, as well as an infantry officer in the Army, as well as his insight as an educator, will provide a unique perspective on the issue of gun control. Please welcome Dr. Price to the stage.
Thank you. I realize you're all cold out there, so I'll try to make this brief. I had other things to say about banning assault weapons. Many people have said that. We all agree. I also believe that there's no need to have teachers with weapons in the classroom. I had many things to say about that, but I'm going to get on to my third point. What I'd like to do is to address the young people here today, many of whom I've taught or are currently teaching. If my father was among the so-called greatest generation, the children of that cohort of greatness has turned out to be the worst generation. My generation, the baby boomers, the generation that gave you the 3 worst presidents in the history of the Republic. You, the millennials in Generation Z, will inherit a world fashioned by my generation. Unfortunately, the world we bequeath to you, we have largely destroyed. You will inherit a devastated environment, a corrupt political system, an unjust legal system, and a rigged economy. That is, if you live long enough to address the problems that we have created. You are being killed in unprecedented numbers because because the political establishment in this country refuses to take substantive action. The politicians nationwide would rather protect a misguided ideology and the profits of lucrative businesses than protect you and your schools, in your places of worship, in the places where you work, or on the streets. To your credit, you have recognized that you must do something. That irrespective of what your elders or authority figures say or do, you must bring about a change in this country. Now, I applaud you. But I also want to put this moment, your moment, in context. This is a moment in time that does not come to every generation. Such a moment last occurred 50 years ago. In the spring and summer of 1968, I saw older members of my generation, college students mostly, rise up across the globe and challenge the political institutions that preserve power in the hands of corrupt and unapproachable leaders. In Prague, young people defied Soviet tanks and shook the Iron Curtain, one that would fall 20 years later. In Paris, the students blocked the streets and paralyzed the government and brought about a fundamental transformation of the educational system in France. And in the United States, college-age students prevented a sitting president from seeking re-election and helped bring about an end to the Vietnam War. I can still hear the students in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention chanting, "The whole world's watching, the whole world's watching," as the three major networks recorded Mayor Daley's policeman attack and savagely beat peaceful protesters. And in that moment, the students revealed to the world how the American political system had delegitimated itself. But the story does not end here. Because you see, once the Vietnam War came to an end, and the threat of the draft was over, many members of my generation withdrew into their narcissism. They later drew on their trust funds, scrupulously monitored their investments, retreated to their gated communities, and made contributions to their favorite PACs. And oh yes, some of them brought many of you into the world. And that's the world you're up against. A world awash with money that floods political campaigns and makes politicians beholden to who finances those campaigns. Why do you think the NRA can make politicians ignore what the overwhelming majority of Americans are saying about gun laws? Your representatives are owned by the NRA and Big Pharma and the Koch brothers, to name a few. And you must be prepared to fight them. When I look at you young people, when I see your idealism, your energy, your anger, I think not of the youth of '68, but of my father's generation. Those men and women responded to a call to save the nation, indeed the world. They came from all walks of life across the country, and many of them were teenagers. In a matter of weeks, many of them learned how to fire an M1, fly a B-17, drive a Sherman tank, load a Liberty ship's cargo, and navigate in mountainous and tropical terrain. They did not ask for this. They barely understood. But they responded with all the strength and fury they could muster. And most important of all, they did not stop until they had prevailed. You are in that same situation today. You are being called upon to save this nation, and in many ways the world, just as my father's generation was called upon. The enemy is very different, but the stakes are just as high. What do you fight with? What is your most reliable and powerful weapon? It is the vote. As banal as that sounds, it is true. Your voices expressed in votes can overcome the money of the NRA. Your tireless efforts to get voters to the polls will make all the difference in the world. You must do your research. Look at every official, state representative, state senator, congressman, and your 2 senators, and determine exactly where they stand on gun issues. You must determine who finances their campaigns, the organizations and the PACs. And you must expose these politicians again and again and again. You must make it very clear. If any politician opposes gun legislation, let him know that you will not only vote against him, but also organize campaigns of candidates who will run against him. Let these politicians know that wherever they appear, they will be met by young people who will relentlessly confront them over this issue. In short, you must remove them from office through the power of the ballot. This political struggle, for that is what it is, will require tremendous energy. It will exhaust you. Such work is tedious and fatiguing and rarely rewarding. Like your grandparents, you will have to learn new things. In your case, you will become familiar with the election laws and campaign regulations, with voter registration lists and how to register voters, with political party rules and how to become a convention delegate. And of course, how to speak to people who are older than you. Not through Facebook, or Snapchat, or Twitter, or whatever other platform is popular these days, but directly, face to face, so that you can listen to what they say and begin a genuine dialogue with them. Yeah. And oh yes, there will be elections that you will lose, and there will be nothing to celebrate on those election nights. But like many of your grandparents before you will not give up. You will fight on. You will continue to organize and register more voters and get ready for the next election, the next rally, the next demonstration. And one day you will win this battle for gun laws that ban assault weapons, impose universal background checks, record all sales at gun shows, and so on and so forth. But such a day will not be an ending. No, it will be but the beginning. For you are leading the battle to regain control of our political process. You are holding politicians responsible and teaching them that they must reflect the will of the people. This is the challenge that history places before you. And I, for one, believe that you can meet this challenge. I believe in your intelligence, your exuberance, your youthful strength, and most of all, the basic human values you express every day. Values rooted in mutual respect and common decency. That phrase returns to me now. The whole world's watching. Yes, and today they are watching you. The hopes and dreams of the nation are in your hands now. Our collective future will be decided by your will and your perseverance. My father's generation succeeded. I hope and pray that you will succeed too.
So the next speaker is senior Rick Bonham from Carroll High School, and he's on the football team, captain of the speech team, a member of the Mayor's Youth Engagement Council, a member of the Common Sense Politics Club, and founder of the Political Discourse Group at Carroll. Let us give him our attention as he gives us his opinion on it.
Before I begin, thank you to everyone who's come out here to brave the cold, the awful wind, and basically stand in solidarity, not only with ourselves, but with millions of people around the world. So let's get to it. 38 days later, 912 hours later, 54,720 minutes later, 3,283,200 seconds later, we stand gathered here to march. Not to march for our freedom of speech, not to march for our right to bear arms, but for the right to live. The right to live safe, the right to live happy, and most importantly, the right to live secure. Last time I said we cannot expect change unless we demand it ourselves, and this march signifies that. It signifies that we will not give up until we are heard. This very week, we saw another high school shooting, one that nearly took the lives of 2 innocent children. We said enough is enough, but let me ask you all, has Congress realized that? Have our elected officials realized enough is enough? I personally am not interested in the letter in front of their names, whether it says R or whether it says D. I am, however, interested in solutions, because enough of empty promises and lip service, enough of us being called a reactionary movement, enough of us being laughed at, and most importantly, enough of us losing our lives to gun violence. We must recognize that this issue isn't one that is partisan. It isn't one that favors one side over the other. It is an issue that affects anyone and everyone equally. We must not fall into the narrative of attacking a specific party, person, or group. We must show Washington and the world that our movement is not one backed by a singular party, not one that is backed by a singular candidate, but a movement backed by the logic in our minds, compassion in our hearts, and humanity in our souls. The message I would like to convey to everyone today is that of unity. Only in unison can we accomplish the monumental challenge of seeing change in the United States. Unity is what will carry us forward in the battle against gun violence. And it must be not in unity, but only amongst those who are like-minded, but those who stand together, whether they disagree or agree with each other. But we must stand together as Americans. It is only with each other that we really do see change implemented in this great nation. If we stand united, nothing and no one can break us. As we have seen, the issue of gun violence must be one that is tackled with strength and tact. We now know that the only way to fight this epidemic is through common sense laws. We must strengthen background checks. In fact, over 90% of gun owners support this. So let me ask the NRA, why don't you? We must close the gun show loophole. A convicted felon should not be able to walk into a gun show and walk out with an AR-15. We cannot allow students to become target practice for those who have no obstruction in their way of purchasing a high-powered firearm. Sorry, the wind's really bad.
You got this!
Our course of action from now should be steady yet swift, powerful yet precise. Our movement should continue to sustain. Today we march all over the nation, and in fact in different countries around the world. We march in Europe, in South America, and in Asia, all in solidarity and in unity. We have created a lasting impact on the world, and just like all other movements, we started small. But even the smallest drop of water can create the largest ripple. Think back to the freedom riders who faced danger and peril at every corner, who were beaten, bruised, and bloodied. Yet they stood strong, they stood resolute, and they stood united. Today, I see that in all of us, the same strength, the same resolve, and most importantly, the same sense of unity. We must keep on demanding change. Change on the status quo, change in our laws, and change to keep people safe from gun violence. There is no simple answer, yet there should be. The question we now need to ask ourselves is, when do we start prioritizing the lives of our children over our right to keep and bear arms? Only when we ask our elected officials to answer this question can we really see change in the United States. To our government officials, let me remind you the words of Thomas Jefferson. The care of human life and happiness, and not their destruction, is the first and only object of a good government. Dear Washington, D.C., the world is watching, the world is acting, and the world is taking a stand. When will you? Just as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. I thank you all for gathering here today. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America.
Okay, so the next speaker is one of my best friends since 7th grade, Magnolia Keene. We're both first-generation Americans, and we share that together, and we always had the same views, so she's like my partner in crime. So now she's gonna speak, so give it up for Magnolia.
Hello everyone. Hey Colin, could you please lower the mic? Sorry, I'm a little vertically challenged. Okay, so we have come together today because we demand change. We have had speakers here today that have told you that we have not been heard, that we have not been safe. It is disappointing, but the only way we are going to change things is if we change it ourselves. We are a powerful generation, and you will hear us loud and clear. We are not safe in our schools.
a place that should be a safe haven. Not only are America's people bleeding, but the children have become targets. We are the future, and you cannot expect to have a prosperous future when you are living in constant fear. In the last 3 months alone, there have been about 20 school shootings. That is 20 too many. In order to create this change, we must not back down. We need to keep this issue in the press. We must show our legislators that we are serious. We, as a generation, must stop the trend of voting for politicians that take donations from the NRA. As Emma Gonzalez said, we call BS. And we must keep calling BS. No one wants to die while they are getting their education. As we hear about these mass shootings, we hear about what the students chose to text their parents and say as their last words. Some said, "I love you." Some said, "Thank you for everything that you've done for me." I don't ever want to have to think about what I would say as my last words. It is concerning that I have even come across this idea. I am a first-generation American, and I must say that I have never felt afraid of guns in my home country of Ireland. And that is how it should be. America has the highest rate of mass shootings in the world. We don't just want gun control, we need gun control. We must remember that we are fighting for not just our lives, but the lives of the ignorant. Mass shootings are not a Democrat's issue, they are an American issue. We want a country that is safe for everyone. We do not want to live in fear. And I ask you to work towards this fight for gun control every day. Do whatever you can to show our politicians that we are serious. Participate in walkouts at your school, call your politicians, write them letters, join clubs in your community and at school. I would also like to ask those who will be 18 or older during the next election cycle to register to vote. Women's League of Voters is here today, so you can register with them, or you can text 2VOTE or 28683 to register. Also, I would like to thank Moms Demand Action for coming out today. You show us that the adults are listening. Thank you to all of the wonderful speakers who came out to support the cause on this chilly afternoon. And thank you to my boys at the Overlook who provided us with the sound system today and gave us some great music to listen to. And thank you to my partner in crime, Sophia Ahmad. Now, if you could please join me as we march for our lives around the courthouse.
I don't know what the main floor looks like, but it's about